You are listening to Amplify Your Success, episode 209, and today we have a special version of the podcast. I'm taking you behind the scenes in a live Amplify coaching session, helping someone get their message tuned in to their ideal audience so they can magnetize their perfect clients. And you get to eavesdrop in. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Amplify Your Success podcast. Hey, are you a thought leader, creative entrepreneur, or change maker and want to magnify your impact, boost influence while creating a financial abundance? Stay tuned for today's inspiring episode with your host, Melanie Benson.
Hi there, inspired entrepreneurs, experts, business leaders. If you're building a business around your expertise and you know it's time to up your game, you are in the perfect right place. And today we have got a special episode. I'm taking you into the eavesdrop mode and letting you listen in on a private coaching session. I do have permission from the person in the hot seat who I took through a exercise to really understand who her niche was and how to message to them. Because what was happening was she was going out onto podcasts and putting marketing elements out and feeling kind of frustrated because she wasn't really attracting the clients in. So we had to do a messaging overhaul and give it a little facelift. And I find that this is something that happens all the time with people who they have a lot of passion and they know what they can do, but they haven't quite figured out how to articulate it in a way that's compelling and interesting, and the value proposition gets translated to the listener. So enjoy. Love to hear your thoughts. And if you're not in Amplify Your Authority, that free Facebook group, please make sure you come over and join us, because inside that group, from time to time, we will be doing opportunities for people to apply for the on-air coaching that we do here in the podcast. And it's also the first opportunity. You'll get the first notification when we're going to invite people into Amplify Inner Circle. Now, right now, Amplify Inner Circle is open for enrollment. And if you're catching this episode early enough, you may get in on the tail end of our founders level, which is 50% off the Amplify Inner Circle program. The Amplify Inner Circle is going to give you a roadmap to follow to get visible to your ideal clients and the best opportunities in your industry to share your message so that you get more book sales, you get more clients, and you and your message get the exposure it needs so that you can be changing the lives of the people you want to serve. So check out amplifyinnercircle.com. And if it feels right for you, let's get you in. There is no better time than now to amplify the reach of your message, your impact, and your income. So let's do this. Well, welcome back, Amplifiers. Today, we have a really special episode. We haven't done one of these in a while, and I'm very excited to bring you an on-air Amplify session. And so these sessions are special strategy sessions that somebody has invested in to be able to work out one of the pieces of their business. And today I'm excited to introduce you to Joyce Buford. Now, Joyce is a member of the Amplify Mastermind, and she's been working through the Get Magnetic Messaging, how to get your signature talk out and be a guest expert process. And when we got to the point of doing her podcast pitching process, she really wanted a little bit of extra finessing and to run through it. And I thought, wow, we could spotlight what Joyce is working through, because I know so many people, this is exactly what keeps them from getting themselves out and booked on stages and podcasts and as a guest expert. So Joyce, let me give you your official introduction. So Joyce Buford is an Amazon bestseller of effortless happiness. She's a motivational speaker and a second wind coach. She is passionate about giving women the tools they need to thrive through their pain and confusion by living the second wind experience. She is also the host of her own podcast, Second Wind with Joyce. She has highlighted the empowerment of transition by interviewing over 350 powerful women who share their success stories. And Joyce is on a mission to share the freedom of reclaiming the alignment required to live a full life of enrichment at any age. Joyce, I'm so excited to bring you into the, we'll just call it a love seat today. Why not, right?
Yes.
Get a little loving on today.
I love this.
Perfect. So, just to give everybody a little bit of background and get you up to speed with where Joyce is at. Joyce has been working through the modules of Get Magnetic Messaging, and she has put together what we call a one sheet, which is a sheet of all of her details. And I ask people when I'm coaching them through this process to kind of use their own voice and do what feels natural to them. And then I help kind of fine tune it and transform some of the elements so that there's like a compelling magnetic message in it that really stands out to a podcast host or to someone who's looking to book this kind of topic on their show. So, Joyce, the second wind experience is what you're calling this.
Yes.
And I love that. And your real niche, when you worked through the niche, one of the things we do is teach people how to find who their real client is. And so you really discovered that this is a woman who is over 50 who's not really living her dream life.
Yes.
Okay. So that in your title is really, really clear. Now, one of the things we want to do in your topic title, you have the second wind experience, how the 50 plus woman claims her dream life. You've got two really awesome things happening in this title. One, specificity. So we know it's for women who are 50 plus.
Yes.
And what that does is the listener can really quickly decide if this is for her.
Yeah.
But you've also let a host know that you're looking to talk about the woman who's in that stage of her journey. So if that's not really what a podcast host does, they'll know right away that you're not the right one. But also if that's what they love talking about, they're going to know right away you're a perfect guest. The other thing is you're giving them something kind of unique in the second wind experience. Now, you combine the word second and wind, right, in your the way you frame it.
Yes.
I would just suggest separating second wind from experience in the way you lay it out.
Okay.
Because it's a little easier to read. Just
Okay.
little tiny things there. All right. Now, the way you wrote this is as if it's for you. But what I'm going to suggest when we do a one sheet is that we shift this from my voice. So this is me talking to the potential host and do it more in a little bit of third party. So instead of I'm sharing today and things like that, we want to frame this as what the audience is going to get. And this is one of the hardest things that people, when they're first learning to do this, they have a hard time separating what what they would say if they were just going to write it.
Yes.
And what they say when it's like a third party. So I'm going to read what you have here. Have you ever experienced a change in your life that left you feeling empty and scared? I love that. Now there's two things here about a question. And I learned this from a copywriter. Is if you ask questions like this, if the person says no, they're immediately going to tap out. And that might be okay here because you really are talking to people who've experienced a change in their life that left them feeling kind of empty and anxious and unfulfilled.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you is it important for your right audience to have been scared by this change? Or do you think it's more about them feeling unfulfilled?
I think the unfulfilled would be a perfect word to put in there instead of scared. Because change maybe doesn't scare some people, but they can feel unfulfilled and not be in a good place in their life for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So have you ever experienced a change in your life that left you feeling empty or unfulfilled? So then I would follow it up with something that kind of reinforces the question. Something along the lines of change is a part of life, but sometimes unexpected change can someone leave you feeling actually empty, unfulfilled, and even feel like there's a third word, can leave you feeling
Stuck?
empty.
Do you want to use stuck? Stuck?
Yes, unfulfilled and stuck. That's a good one. So I am going to actually remove the question.
Okay.
And change is part of life, but sometimes unexpected change can leave you feeling empty, unfulfilled, and stuck. Divorce, a career ending too soon, empty nest syndrome.
Do you want to put death of a spouse in here?
Or as I say, or the death of a loved one,
Oh,
because it could
yes.
actually, if you are a
Sure.
caretaker, right, and you're caretaking for
Yeah.
your parents or someone else,
Right.
death of a loved one can leave you, can bring you to the brink of frustration, but it can also be a gateway to the life you've always dreamed of. How's that
That
sound?
sounds good.
Okay. I might go back through and fine tune. So maybe the question comes here. Sometimes or change can bring about your second wind.
Mhm.
And author Joyce Buford. So see how I just slipped
Yes.
in a little bit of credibility
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Author Joyce Buford is an expert in guiding 50 plus women through a powerful transformation process to claim their dream life. After a 2-year divorce, after a 2-year long divorce is what I'm hearing, right? Or so it was after 20, okay, so after a 2-year long divorce that ended a 23-year marriage, Joyce quit her passion-filled job and moved to her dream city, Santa Fe, New Mexico. But unexpectedly, was startled when her dream life left her feeling unprepared and unfulfilled, right?
Yes.
In her new reality. So what does one do when life just doesn't seem to work? And this is where you'd say, now, if you were pitching somebody, you would say, this is where, book Joyce Buford to discover how to use the second wind experience to create, not to create a transformation and more fulfillment, right?
Yes.
But in this sense, what we're doing is we're creating the message that they would post. So listen in as Joyce reveals how the second wind experience leads to a prosperous life, leads to a more prosperous life. So I feel like this is an opportunity for you to have what we called a bold influence statement or a bold influence formula.
Oh,
Like
okay.
this is a moment for a catchphrase right here.
Uh-huh.
So listen in as Joyce reveals her 5-part formula or her 5-part second wind experience or her 4-step second wind experience that leads to a more rich and emotionally prosperous. So I think the emotional piece is a big part of what you
Yes, I do too.
focus on.
Yeah.
So when you've been working through those pieces, and I know you may not have it all nailed down, but do you have a sense of your steps in the second wind experience? Are there 4 of them? Are there 5 of them?
There's 6.
Okay, so how these reveals how you can how the 6-step second wind experience leads to a more rich and emotionally prosperous life. How's that feeling?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Very.
Now, I love how you framed your audience takeaways. And so when you're going through this process for yourself, as you're listening in to Joyce and I, you're eavesdropping in on Joyce's coaching session here. One of the things that I really encourage when we do audience takeaways is think of something that will, if it's different in their life, it's so valuable they can't afford to miss it. So what if you followed along in my rocks method, if you use my rocks method, if you caught that podcast from a few months back, and I will link this up in the show notes, one of the things is to recognize the rocks method is helpful when you're defining things like takeaways, outcomes, things that are different because we want to be relevant to the listener. We want to be outcome focused, meaning we don't want to do this as it's, so the difference between a feature and a benefit, right? We're not doing features. Features are, I'm going to get 2 hours of time with somebody, or I've got, I'm getting a 1-day retreat. Those are features. What we want is something that's an outcome. It's a benefit. It's something that is tangible that makes their life better. So, the way I would frame this is after listening in to this conversation or episode or whatever you're pitching, the listener will, and your first statement was open their window of possibilities. Now, you and I know what that means.
Yes.
But let's say I'm a 50+ woman. I haven't really done a lot of personal growth work. What is the thought they think? What is the thing that would make sense to someone who this isn't their world with all of these fancy words that we say?
Yes. What is their world? I think you probably have to, they'd take away with more clarity, or they might know what they want from their life, or a direction to begin their work. Does that make sense?
So in the episode or in the conversation, and that you talk through your 6-step second wind experience, one of the things you do is you have a question or something that you ask that gets people to start seeing possibility where maybe they've been seeing a limitation or they felt like that door is shut, right?
Right.
So maybe it's like the listener will see a new I know where you're going with the door and the window.
Options?
See options, see a new potential, see where, here we go, see where they have created a limited life, and how one question can create a path to their dream, to a new, to more fulfillment, something like that. I might have to flesh that one out, but
Yeah.
basically where they've created listener will see where. So is it their thinking or is it their actions? What is it that creates the limitation right now in their life?
Well, they're thinking, because many of us have those defeating thoughts of limitation that we carry so much. We need shifting, or to think more positive, more open. Um, and we carry old baggage from early life wounding. So that's what I'm trying to share, that they will maybe change the way they're thinking about who they are, so that they can easily see that they have more values, they have more talents, they have inside them, they have so many skills that they're not using or haven't used in years. So I'm
How about this? The listener will see where their defeating thoughts have created a limited life and how one change in their thinking can open the door to a fulfilling life path.
I like that so much better.
Okay, good.
Magic of your
Well,
words.
it's all about the messaging,
It
right?
is.
So, so the second statement was manage change through a mind shift.
Yeah.
Is that what we just talked about, or is that something different?
Well, I think that what I'm trying to say there is that it will mean, to create a new life, to create a new future, they will have to go through change. Most people
Mm-hmm.
feel very uncomfortable around change because it certainly
Mm-hmm.
puts you in a messy place. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
aware that that's part of the journey to get to the golden egg, or where we want to end up, then I think you're at an advantage, that that's going to happen, and change is part of transition.
So, how to embrace messy changes as part of the transformation process that leads to their golden
Yes.
goose. Okay. Got to get outside your comfort zone to move into a new life.
Yeah.
So,
That's sort of
what?
talking about change again, but it's
This is good
using
though.
a different word. Comfort
Mhm.
zone is where we just don't like to get out of it. I mean, we're so comfy in our comfy zone.
Mm.
So it's what we're.
How about this one is some signs that you cover in your talk,
Mhm.
like 5 signs, 4 signs that you're stuck in your comfort zone and it's keeping you stuck in a life you don't love.
Yes. Okay. So how do I have to list those, or do just
Not here.
state that I have 5?
5, okay. And you can fix this if you find that you've got 4 or
Yeah.
6. In a podcast or in these interview style things, you want to have less things you cover.
Mm,
So having 3 or something like that is better than 7 or
yeah.
9 or 10 because it's hard to get through them all.
Yes.
But I like 5 signs you're stuck in your comfort zone, and it's keeping you from living your best life. And I like this last one, make action your friend. But
Mhm.
tell me about it so we can tease it out a little bit and turn it into something that is meaningful to the reader.
Action is sort of like facing the fears that keep you stuck.
Hmm.
So we don't want to act many times because it's just simply the fear of the unknown. So if you can take it out of that and just say take action, or do something that's new, um, sometimes you can be more comfortable with it. It can turn into your friend, instead of seeing it as um, something that stops you. If we can
Is that
change.
part of your 6-step second wind experience?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm. Is it the 6th one?
Um, yes. Um, yeah, because we actually work with what those steps would be, what that action would be.
Okay. So I'm thinking something like why the sixth step in the second one experience is make action your friend. Um, and how or we could do how taking action even if it's not or taking imperfect action,
That's
how
good.
taking any
Yeah.
action, yeah, maybe we'll do that. How or why
You're right. A lot of people
take
might stop at not being the perfect action.
mhm. So why taking action even if it's imperfect is your new best friend, is your new second wind best friend. How's
Yeah.
that? Excellent. So, I might add one more takeaway, but I feel like these four are really strong. We
Mhm.
might put in here what the six steps are for the second wind experience, but we've said it in the write up, so I don't know that we need to say it again.
Yes.
So I'm going to move into your speaker introduction, and then we're going to talk about, or actually, we'll come back to your speaker. Let's talk about the interview questions.
Mhm.
So the interview questions, as we all know, most hosts like to have something that guides them.
Mhm.
There are some hosts that won't use them all, but they like to create their own, and some will stick to it like glue.
Yes.
um, so what I like to do with the interview questions is to guide the host through how to get the best out of us and making sure we're covering the talking points that we mentioned in the write up.
Yeah.
So where do you think one needs to start to rebuild their life? Um, just thinking here about tell me how master your mind and frame of gratitude. Um, I think I feel like we would start with what are the signs
Okay.
that you're stuck? Um, or actually, here's what I think I would do. I think I would start with something like, um, I think I would. So there's a couple different ways we could start with your story, but I tend to like to start with something that's really tangible because people don't know they want to know you until they know that what you have to say is meaningful and valuable to them.
I see.
So, um, here's where I think you could use a story. So, what if we did something like, um, do you think there's some kind of a statistic or an epidemic or especially with what we've been going through with COVID, where a lot of people have been experiencing these extraordinary times that are turning their lives upside down. Do you think there's something that's really relevant in this moment that we could refer to kind of kickstart the conversation?
Um, well, it's certainly been a time of self-reflection, and we've come up short, many of us, in that we don't have a solid. We've discovered we don't have a solid relationship. We've discovered we don't like who we hang out with. Uh, we've discovered we're not who we thought we were. So there's some stories there, but if I want to tie it in with my client, right? Or the person that I want
Mm-hmm.
to coach.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you have a metaphor or some kind of a like something that many women who are 50 plus might relate to? Because I feel like there's a like an opening story that we would really pull somebody in.
um, I think you could. I'm just using my own self as an
Mhm.
example here. I would think probably for me, the most difficult thing was isolation of self. Now,
Mm.
part of that is because I'm a social butterfly. So um, I do think feeling alone was very um, part of many of my days. I felt alone because I live alone. And so there are many women that, after the results of their transition, or when they're in the middle of it, if they've gone through a divorce, if they've gone through a loss of a loved one, there's a way of feeling very isolated and alone. And so that brings up the fear of, is this the way I'm going to stay the rest of my life? Is this all there is? Um, I think there's a story there, but I don't have an actual story like and I think you're asking for a story, right?
Well, I'm trying to find something that opens with power so that
In
you've got the audience glued to you from the moment the first words, land, right?
mhm.
And I'm feeling like isolation is something really powerful. I'm just trying to think, is there a fairy tale or a fable or something like that, or a parable that there's an older woman who's isolated. And the only thing, it's not right, Joyce. I
Rapunzel,
know it's not right.
Rapunzel.
Well, Rapunzel was young though, so that's why I wasn't going for a Rapunzel. I was trying to think something age appropriate. And all I could come up with is the old woman who would lived in a shoe, right?
Yes, but she had lots of kids.
Yes, she did. But it's not right. So I was trying to think of a great metaphor, and it may be one that you craft, right? And this
Mhm,
might be part two to what we work on here is
mhm.
find that parable down the road.
Yes.
But um, so instead of saying where do you think one needs to start, how about we say, how would someone know
Oh,
that
that's good.
they are stuck in a life that's not fulfilling?
Yes.
And the reason why I'm thinking something along these lines is because um, you could even lead with, it's interesting you asked this question because you would think you would know if you're not fulfilled.
Mhm,
But yet, so many women who, hit that 50th birthday, that 55th birthday, that 60th birthday are going through this process where they're starting to question, like, is this all there is?
uh-huh.
And and so let me get into some of the signs, and this is where we would bring in those signs, right? So you would, in terms of what you would cover is, it's like what you're doing is you're meeting the audience in the common ground
Mhm,
of, well, isn't everybody unfulfilled? But how do I know that I'm so unfulfilled that I'm stuck in a life that's basically it's the boiled frog
mhm.
analogy, right? Like you are a frog that is being boiled to death slowly because you're stuck in a life that's so deeply unfulfilling and you're missing out on the real gems in life. And I think so you could draw that contrast, right?
Mhm.
It's like, so what are the signs? And contrast against what a fulfilled life brings them, because maybe they don't even recognize that there's something else that's so much more magical.
Mhm. Yeah, I think sometimes for a woman that's lived in a sort of limited life, um, it's hard for her to think outside of her box. What is the
Mhm.
possibilities for me?
Mm.
What does that look like? Uh, Going to the beauty shop, or does that look like going to my dream location? Um,
Mhm.
what does that look like? And for many people, it'll be hard. They'll limit themselves. They'll put a cap on it, not not thinking it can be really that good.
Mhm. And this is where we get into the kind of the conditioning, right?
Yes.
That you can talk about is there's conditioning
Hmm.
that we buy into
Yes.
from our parents and from our life partners and then from the society we live in, and so you can actually bring some power right out of the gate here by talking about what happens when we're conditioned for stuckness.
Yes. Right.
And so that could be one of your catchphrases is stuckness is a conditioning.
Yes, that's very good. I like that.
Yeah, so you can have that.
Yeah.
You can use that. That's a catchphrase for you is, are you conditioned for stuckness? Are you conditioned for stuck or are you conditioned for, you know, uh, thrive, whatever your contrast is? But I think it's really important that you contrast that against what a fulfilled life brings them. So, right in that beginning statement, you're saying, look, most people don't even realize what fulfilled could look like.
Yeah.
And so we'd want to have like 2 or 3 statements about um, what fulfilled could look like.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I would go into a second question is, so how does a woman, a smart, capable, loving woman
Hmm.
get stuck like this? And that's when you can talk about, a woman who's been in a relationship for a really long time. Maybe she's been a mother, and so she's kind of put her own self aside.
Yes.
She's confused about who she is. That's where you're going to want to put some of those elements that you had.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
And she's not used to making major decisions. And that's what
mm,
what you're doing when you're making life changes.
great. It could be that she's in a career
Hmm.
that took over her life, raised kids, sacrificed her own needs. I know a lot of women that end up here.
Yes.
So she didn't go to school. She didn't really develop a career path. And now the kids are, getting into college and she's looking around going like, huh, now what do I do?
Hmm.
So I would tell one story in here. Uh, so even if it's your story,
Yes.
so I was that woman that was in a relationship for a really long time and I was confused about who I was and I didn't think about what I wanted. I thought about what my mate needed, right? And so I would tell a little story about that. But I've also worked with and known women who had a career that took over their life. So now what you're doing is you're giving them something to associate themselves to.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they can see themselves in this situation.
Hmm.
And then I like this question. So let's say a woman recognizes that she's been stuck, she's given up her power, she's in that space. What do you think are the important steps to create a second wind? Actually, we need to talk about the second wind. When you talk about the contrast in this question number one, I
Yes.
would suggest you say the path from being stuck to being fulfilled lies in um, what I call the second
Right.
wind. And I create second wind experiences, and I'll walk you through that in a minute.
Hmm.
So, what do you think are the most important steps a woman would take, woman could take to claim a more fulfilled life? And this is
Hmm.
where you could bring in that second wind. So um, this is the second wind experience I teach. It has 6 steps. We don't have time to cover all 6 steps, but
Yeah.
I do cover it in my blah, blah, blah training.
Yes.
So that's seating,
Hmm.
but I do cover it in my training. But let me tell you the 3 most important steps every woman needs. You have grieve. You have, we've talked a little bit about their thinking already, so this is good to bring that in. And then gratitude, right?
Right.
And you could always change these around if you find you want to organize them differently, but that's where I would cover 3 of your 6 steps.
Okay.
So you had a question about why is a new direction in life so scary? And this brings up the comfort zone. I wonder if the transition is so so you could say like these steps seem reasonable. So why don't more women claim their own second wind? And you can talk about, well, it requires us to get outside our comfort zone.
Yes. Yeah. And usually it requires learning skills they haven't used, or building a new career, or depends on where they are, but it does require some definitely getting outside of their comfort zone. For instance, they'd now be talking to the accountant, where they may have never done that in the past. They may be talking to an attorney, which they've never done before. I mean, there are a lot of things that they have to face when they make that transition. If it's some of the changes, I mean, if we're talking about a child that's left home, no, but life changes like divorce or loss of a loved one, for sure.
Yeah. I know someone's going through that right now, but he's a man. And then the 5th question was, how does a woman begin to live again? So I feel like live again, that we might want to pick a different word that maybe feels more aligned with your
Yes.
branding and what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Um,
To live her passion, to live her dream life, to
claim.
claim her dream life.
Yeah, claim her dream life because it's already there. She just hasn't claimed it. And now you've talked about these steps already. So I think the way I would do this is, how do you help women
Well,
claim their dream life?
I like to go through, instead of going through the formal goal building, which is part of their start looking toward the future and what they may need to further educate them to help make this transition successful. I like to talk about vision boarding because it's very simple, it's easy, they can see visions. And um, I hate to make a generalization, but many people are visually, um, that helps them see their future. They can pick it out of a
So
magazine, but they
yes.
have difficulty.
Yeah, you can see visually some, or you can talk if you're, if visually impaired.
Yeah.
But they can connect to something that allows them to feel that hope and that possibility. So what I want you to do is last question is going to be, how do you help women, Joyce, claim their dream life? And so you're going to talk about like, well, one of the first processes I love doing with my women in the
Second wind
X
experience.
whatever
Second
wind experience is to create a vision board. Now, here's what happens with a vision board. And I think we all know we should do a vision board, but there's something about this process that makes the vision board experience more rewarding and more, it like helps them focus differently the way I facilitate it. And that's how women start really connecting to this, to claiming their new life again. It's like getting clear what that is. And when they say what the next step is, um, so we're talking about this vision experience right here. I'm wondering, would you want to talk about your second wind experience?
that would seem like you would go back through all of the. I'm not clear how I would talk about it without going back
So
through the
why,
program.
yeah, why don't you, your offer, like that thing that you invite people to,
Mhm.
why don't we somehow tie that into the second wind experience?
Okay.
And what if we call it, so I know this has been a stuck point for you. It's
Yeah.
like, what am I really going to call this like consultation?
That call is
Well, I think you have two choices. One, you can keep up your vision board workshop that you do,
yes.
and you can let people know like how to find out about the next vision board workshop you're doing,
All right.
or you can invite them into a consult call with you. What do you think would be the best way for you to serve the women and entice them to coming into your world and working with you?
Uh, well, I really think the consult conversation gives them an overview of where they are. I think it's more of where are you today? And the vision board allows them to start dreaming, but it really doesn't talk about where they are today. So I kind of think the consult conversation is more important
Hmm.
um, in helping them move forward or make a decision whether they would want to work with me.
So I think I would call your consult. Um, well, so options is not a bad word. I know this is a 30-minute options call, but it could feel a lot like it's a stock conversation, because that's a style
Oh,
of stock. It could also, it doesn't necessarily tie back to your
yes,
brand as much as I would like it to.
yes.
So, we could call it, the um, uncover your dream call. It could be a second wind um, exploratory call.
Hmm.
It could be a create your vision call. It could be, is anything jumping out at you?
I kind of like the second wind experience call. Is
Okay.
that
So
too?
second
It does it is have we not
second
clarified
wind.
second wind experience?
Let's call it a second wind exploration call.
I like that.
Yeah, because the experience is its own thing.
Yes.
So what you're doing is you're exploring with them where they're at in their second wind.
Yes.
And so what I would do is say in this, so normally
Hmm.
this is a, $197 call, but I'd love to gift it to the listeners. And what we will do is we'll explore where you are on the second wind trajectory, right?
Yes.
And what is the dream? What's in the way of the dream? And what action or what path you could take to live a more fulfilled life?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Melanie, that's really good.
Thanks.
You did
Well,
good.
I think just having this little bit of languaging, it just helps really be clear what's possible when somebody works with you, right?
Yes.
So you can use this anytime you offer a consult for any reason.
Hmm.
You can use the same language now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gotten through your, like the write up, we've gotten through what the takeaways are. We've gotten through the talking points, which I think are really the big thing.
Yes.
When you send over your materials to a prospective host, or when you're pitching, you wouldn't want to put your talking points. You would just put the questions if
Okay.
they're
All
interviewing
right.
you. So that's just for you.
Yes.
I would just say the last little thing in your speaker intro, just to kind of put a bow on this,
Yes.
is we want to I think I feel like before we talk about you're a bestseller, we should bring in like that you're living your fulfilled life,
Oh,
like
okay.
really lead with the promise.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So I think I would just add that, but the rest of this is really perfect. Um, and what I find is as you start to work through doing a few of these, then you'll go, oh, I think I want to change this one little piece, right?
Yes.
Now I see how I can bring it together just a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that will come together really nicely.
Oh, this is great.
So,
This is so
yeah, are you feeling more clear?
Yes, it's much clearer. Yeah.
Okay, good.
There's a couple things.
So, well, there's a couple little tweaks we can keep doing, but this is not about perfection. This is about making progress. And so your next step is to go out and get yourself booked on some shows using this new write-up.
Yes.
Um, a couple of best practices I recommend, and as my client, I'll do this for you. But if you're following along and just listening to this, and you're going to do this for yourself, I suggest either getting a professional one sheet done, and there's a lot of resources out there on Fiverr or different speaking communities can do that for you. Or a really simple but just as effective way is to create a Google sheet that you connect to your media page on your website, sharing what your topic is and the questions. So it's all available right there.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do for you, Joyce. We're going to put this into a nice little clean Google document that has your picture and everything. So we'll finish putting that together.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, I want I gave you a homework assignment to review some podcasts.
Yes.
Were you able to complete that step?
I would have to say
Okay.
I'm close to it. It was very, very interesting. I also reviewed yours today, and it was very interesting just to see. There are some questions that people ask that are always asked, and
Mhm.
so yeah, it was very interesting to visit those sites to understand how they interview. And I walked away with some things I wanted to change about my podcast.
Oh, well, that's a nice little side benefit. Well,
Yeah.
here's what I'd like to do. I want you to pick one podcast that you would love to get featured on because you really believe that they speak to your most ideal client.
Hmm.
Do you have one in mind?
No, I would want to listen to more than I was able to listen
Okay.
to.
Well, I'm going to do a process with you. So pick something that feels connected for you. I'm going to suggest the let's say the Gail Carson, um, the Women Over 50 podcast she has.
Yes.
Let's do that because I know you'd be perfect for that show.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is I just want you to close your eyes for a minute,
Hmm.
and as you're listening in, and you're doing this process along with Joyce, you can do this too, especially if you already know a show that you'd like to be featured in. And what I want you to do, Joyce, is I want you to visualize your name and your topic showing up in the podcasts that this podcast show host airs.
Hmm.
And I want you to imagine seeing how excited you are as you're recording that podcast.
Hmm.
Like just feeling the magic of somebody really gifted asking you these great questions and you talking about your life's work. And I want you to imagine the women whose lives are different because they heard you share your truth
Hmm.
in a way that inspired them so that they can feel a more fulfilled life, and like how they actually start reaching out and calling you and contacting you because they finally, it's like, oh my gosh, somebody gets me.
Hmm.
Somebody gets my experience that I'm having that I couldn't even name, but Joyce just expressed everything I've been feeling. Can you feel that in your body?
I can.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
That is what I want you to hold on to.
okay. It's
Okay.
there.
Okay, good. You've got this. Well done. And as you're listening in, I just want you to give your own little round of applause to Joyce being in the love seat today and allowing herself to be guided through this process. And I want you to notice that if you don't have your talk mapped out like this and you're getting excited about it, this is what we do in Get Magnetic Messaging, getmagneticmessaging.com. You're welcome to pop over there and enroll and get your own talk put together. And if you are someone who has a show, or you know someone who has a show that would be so blessed to have Joyce on it, reach out to her on Facebook at Joyce Buford Empowers, on Twitter, Your Second Wind, on Instagram, Joyce.Buford. Or Joyce, is there any place else you would like them to connect with
yes,
you?
they could go to Joyce Buford Empowers, Joyce at Joyce Buford Empowers, and I'd get their
Great.
email.
Great.
Yeah.
And make sure you guys download Second Wind with Joyce. Her podcast is also awesome. You never know, maybe you'll end up being a guest on her show.
Yes.
All
For
right.
sure.
Thank you, Joyce.
Melanie, this has been so great. I mean, the clarity that I've gotten is just amazing. So I thank you very much for this.
You are welcome. This is Melanie Benson, your host. Thanks so much for listening in today. If you want to catch up on any of the show notes and circle back on any of the resources we shared in today's show, head on over to the show page at amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. And remember, you amplify your results faster when you're in a community of other people who are moving and shaking. Join us at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. One last thing. When you've gained insight from today's episode, help us share that and inspire other people by heading over to iTunes, subscribing, and give it a review. iTunes absolutely loves seeing these reviews pop up, and it actually helps boost my show's visibility. So I would be super grateful for your reviews. And as always, I love seeing your shares of these episodes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come find me over there. Tag me in your shares. I'll give you some social media love right back. So see you next week for another inspiring episode of Amplify Your Success Podcast.